Hello everyone, welcome back to Tech Talk with Bill. And on this channel, I'll going to teach you JavaScript in a clear, beginner-friendly way, especially for people who are coming from a non-technical background. So this video is called my JavaScript course, where we focus on understanding how JavaScript thinks, not just memorizing syntax. And we are currently using the personal developer instance, which is Valve Service, as a safe place to be your laboratory, run JavaScript. But everything you learn here works anywhere as long as JavaScript works. A lot of beginners think programming is about writing clever code, but in reality, programming is about repeating simple steps correctly. And that brings us to today's topic, which is the for loops. And let us base an example on the script pane. So this code that you see solves the question, why do I have to repeat the same code again and again? And how does the computer know when to stop? And why do loops look so confusing? So if you have these questions in mind, this lesson is for you. And of course, this is for absolute beginners, career shifters into developers and into tech, and anyone learning JavaScript for the first time. And before we begin, a quick reminder, if you want structured long-form lessons like this, consider joining as a channel member. Membership supports the channel and gives you access to deeper walkthroughs like this. And if you're brand new, this video at the end of the screen that I've added, you can watch the environment setup tutorial or the developer environment setup link at the end of the screen so you can follow along. So this code that is simply a way to tell the computer do this task again and again. So that's what the for loop or the keyword for that you see on line number 2 does. But stop when I tell you, and it's quite straightforward once we explain it. And a for loop is not magic. It is a technology just to control repetitive work or repetition. Instead of writing the same code multiple times, we tell JavaScript when to start, when to stop, and how to move forward. And let us see this code slowly by explaining line per line. So let's start with the most basic loop imaginable. So the for that you see on line 2 tells JavaScript we are creating a loop. While var I equals to 1, we are initializing a variable as we went back to the variable lessons, means we start counting from 1. And I less than equals to 5 means the loop will continue as long as I is 5 or less. And the I++ means after each loop, I will be increased by 1. And let us see this into action by running the script. And you will see that it's counted starting from 1 and finishing at 5. So as we go back and let us replace the code, the gs.print is a ServiceNow function that prints the value of I. So each loop or iteration, so it's like a circle loop, prints a new number. In real-world analogy, think of I as a counter, like counting stairs, step 1, step 2, step 3, and stop at step 5. And that's all a for loop does. And let's have more examples for your familiarity. And as I give more examples, I like to pause the video and follow along in your developer instance so you get to be familiar on how for loop basically works. And one of the mistakes that I've done on my beginner years is I did not get my hands early at the early stages. So coding is a hands-on job where you code and you don't memorize it and come back to the documentation to ensure that you are looking on the correct structure of that specific technology. So in this example, what it does sometimes you don't care about the number. We just want repetition. And each loop runs 3 times. And the message is printed once per loop. We didn't repeat the print like manually as we supposed to do in creating the code line 4 and copy pasting it 3 times. But this code basically shortens that repetition. So the outcome here of line 4 is 3 times of printing this script text. And it shows clean code and code quality as a developer as you write down your code correctly. So the quality of your skill set as a developer is how you use the technology, implementing reusability, sustainability, and scalability, which you will learn as we move forward on the following lessons. And what you see here, I like to reinforce it, that the computer does not get tired, and loops is how we leverage that strength. And if this explanation is helping things click, consider joining as a channel member. Member gets access to longer structured lessons exactly like this. And if this still feels confusing, I want you to not blame yourself because that is completely normal. And as you have more practice in hands-on, it takes time to feel natural in implementing machine language. Okay, so let's keep going. On the third example, loops are not just for printing. They are for processing data step by step. And as you can see on line 2, we start with 0 because nothing has been added yet. And on line 5, the loop runs from 1, which we have initialized, and through 5, as we have less than or equal to 5. So as long as this evaluates as true, then it will basically continue looping until the loop is less than or equal to 5. So basically, we are having a counter, and as the count basically runs on line 5, which you see here, it will continue the loop, and on line 7, each number gets added to the total, and we print the final result after the loop finishes, which you see on line 11. So what it does, line 5 to 8 will continue looping, and that has reaches an initialization, which is less than or equal to 5. It tells the loop to stop, and now it will go to line 11. So I want you to tell me the answer down in the comments, and you should get an answer of 15. So in real world analogy, this is like adding items to a shopping cart one by one. Like add item 1, add item 2, add item 3, then stop when done. Now in this next example, this is quite interesting because we are now using a list of collection. So what you're seeing on line 2 is a collection of people's names. And you will be utilizing this technique a lot since you will be working on large number of data. And this list of values that you see will be iterated. And right now, this is of type. So this structure here, when you see this curly bracket and you see that comma, this is an object type that we call array. And arrays as an object has a functionality which is called length. And you get to master on how object works since you will have a dedicated lesson about objects where you become confident on your skills as an OOP developer or object-oriented programming, which is foundational, and you'll be utilizing that both as a beginner and also as an advanced developer. And the length is basically the number of list names. So this could be represented into 1,000 or 2,000, but right now it starts on 0, the counting. So we have 0, 1, 2. So in layman's term, the length is 3. So if I is less than 3, then keep on looping. So now the names that you see here, which is the array object is doing an index. So the index is 0, 1, 2, and right now it's I because it's representing the initialized variable, which is 0. And as it loops, then basically it increments using the I++. So as it basically does that, it has access to the current item. Then the item, we are printing the key, which is the I, and the value is basically Anna. So you may not see it here, but behind the scenes, that's how the machine looks at the array. So that we have a invisible key, which is being seen in the machine language, and this is the value that you basically declare. Now, as we print, this is one of the most important loop patterns in your JavaScript skills. And as you grow your skills and we have more examples on the following lessons, you will get more experience on how programming basically behaves. And I like to pause and reinforce good habits as you grow your skill set. And I want to focus on what changes on each loop and always know when the loop basically stops. And I want you to keep loops simple and readable because the next person to you who's be reading your code and your code has to be understandable. So what you see here is a comment block. So adding comments will help you and the person beside you. It's part of like best practices. And right now we are describing what it's doing in a layman's term. And as you be hard and become a developer in the business, you will be writing a script which is relevant to the description of what business process that you're trying to achieve. And I want you to think of it like a step by step, not all at once, because the amount of detail each step is necessary in moving forward to the next logic. And loops are about control, and you're managing the list of collections, and it's not about speed. And today you've learned about a for loop that basically repeats actions. It's a start, it has a condition, and it has a step. Loops basically replace repetitive line for line code, and loops basically processes data one piece at a time. And you're not only learning syntax, you are learning how the computer basically thinks. So the key takeaways, loops are controlled repetition. Always understand when the loop stops and think in small, repeatable steps. And if you want to continue learning JavaScript the right way, join as a channel member. Watch the next lesson in this series. If you are new, watch the environment setup on the video at the end of this screen. And remember, if you are coming from a non-technical background, this is exactly how you start. One loop at a time, and I'll see you in the next lesson.